This is a churchy Sunday. This Sunday, when we celebrate the end of the church program year, recognize the road that we have traveled together over the last 9 months, and perhaps most importantly, prepare for the Sabbath that summer provides us here in Wisconsin. It's a churchy Sunday because this transition time offers us a chance to look back and to look forward to where we might go together next, to the places and ministries that God might have in store for us. A little later, we're going to receive a report from our Horizon team that shares a larger vision and some hopeful first steps on our future journey. But first, I get a chance to reflect with all of you a bit about the church, the nature of being a church of Jesus Christ. So you heard this passage from 1 Corinthians. Listen to a modern language version of those verses. For the religious, non-religious, meticulous moralists, loose-living immoralists, the defeated, the demoralized, I entered their world and tried to experience things from their point of view. I become just about every sort of servant there is in my attempts to meet those and lead those with a God-saved life. These are Paul's words. And it seems to me he gives us the best definition we could have of a church of the open door, welcoming everyone, because we truly believe everyone can and should experience God's saving love, the Spirit's energizing power, and Jesus' transformation of what is ugly and hateful in the world into something beautiful, something gracious. Through that radical welcome, we believe that Christ creates a new community of love, made up not of cookie-cutter Christians, but a beautiful patchwork quilt of humanity. And then God, through Jesus Christ, does something really crazy. God takes this mutt of a church, us raggedy Congregationalists, and sends us out to make a difference in the world. Us. Me and you. And here's the thing. This community desperately needs this church to be strong, to lift up our collective voice in carrying out this wonderful mission and the unique progressive witness that we have been called to offer, to get our hands dirty in the work of this community, to keep our hearts devoted to service of this community. This community needs us to be strong, to claim the blessings that God has bestowed upon us, the mission and the music, the worship and education, the programs for our children, youth, and families. This wonderful building, these beautiful grounds. Most incredible of all, the people of this church. The people who sit next to you in the pews are extraordinary. They're an incredible source of talent and grace, gifts, and wisdom. Salespeople, caretakers, financial advisors, school teachers, nurses and lawyers, doctors and line workers, custodians and cooks, full-time mothers, full-time fathers, young and old, single and married, gay or straight, all across the political spectrum, all over the religious doctrinal map, with every kind of experience, good and bad, that one could imagine, with every kind of gift that anyone could need. And no matter who you are, what you think, what you do, or where you are on life's journey, there isn't a single one of us here that this church doesn't need. We need each and every one of us. Each and every one of us committed and participating in order for us to fulfill our calling and mission to this community. Soren Kierkegaard tells this parable. A man was walking down the street, and he saw a beautiful sign proudly displayed in a shop window, "Pants pressed here." That's what the sign said. So the man walked into the shop, he walked up to the counter, he took off his trousers, and he handed them to the clerk. "Why did you give me your pants?" the clerk asked. "I want them pressed," the man said. "Oh, we don't press pants," the clerk said. "We sell signs." Kierkegaard tells us this parable to remind us to know and to be what we say we are. I know what we advertise ourselves to be, the church of the open door, but who are we really? How do we live our life as a church? What do we stand up for? We need to be strong. We need to stand up. We need to be what we say we are in this community in a time that is hard-pressed to find hope, tolerance, love, grace, commitment, respect, and peace. We need to be strong. And we need to be something else as well. To the Jews I became as a Jew in order to win Jews, the Apostle Paul writes. To those under the law I became as one under the law. To those outside the law I became as one outside the law. Using the language of simile, Paul is showing us how to act like those, think like those who come from a different life experience or strange perspective so that we can communicate and share the gospel with them. Trying to think and act like somebody else is pretty rare these days. It's like somebody who spends an equal amount of time watching MSNBC and Fox News. Do you know anybody who does that? And then comes Paul's culminating example in this list. To the weak, I became weak so that I might win the weak. Notice that the simile is gone. There is no like, there is no as in this one. Paul isn't asking us to be like we were weak or imagine thinking as if we were weak. No. To the weak, I became weak. Boom. This is a really important point for us. You see, the mission of our church is not to become a strong church. Quite the opposite. The mission of our church is to become weak, to become vulnerable, to cast our lot wholly with those who are suffering, those who are sorrowful, those who are hurting and hopeful, in need and in trouble. Last Sunday, I tried to remind us of our own church history and our ongoing commitment since 1850 to fight for inclusion in this church and community, particularly around areas of gender, race, and sexual orientation. Whether that made this church strong in the eyes of the community or whether it made us seem weak and outmoded and out of step is irrelevant. It's simply who we are, what we have been pressed to be. Who are those who are excluded today? Who are those who are weak in the eyes of the world? How can we, like Paul, live in solidarity with them? That's ultimately what our strategic plan must be about, the plan that you're going to see. Not to become a strong church, but to keep us weak, to keep us reaching out to those who are weak, the lost and lonely who come to us as visitors of this church, the homebound members who need our loving care, the 12-step groups and the other community ministries that need to use this building, the young adults who are entering an uncertain economy and a crazy political environment who don't have the resources of faith that we were raised with. People in our community of different religious background, national origin, race, or gender identity who face discrimination from a fear-filled culture. Those who struggle month by month, week by week, even day by day to make ends meet and provide the basic necessities of food and shelter, health and safety for themselves or a loved one. Or a younger generation of overworked parents who need help in raising their young children in the faith with a trusting love for Jesus. We must be weak. We must continue to commit ourselves and our church's future to weakness, to solidarity and ministry with those who are weak and vulnerable. The future of our church's ministry must also always be devoted to those who most need them. Elsewhere, the Apostle Paul will tell us that our strength is in our weakness. A truer word was never said about those who would follow in the footsteps of Jesus Christ, the one who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God as something to be grasped, but emptied himself, taking the form of a servant, he humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. That's how Paul put it in Philippians. Elsewhere, Isaiah would say he had no form or majesty that we would look at him, nothing in his appearance that we would desire him. He was despised and rejected by others, a man of suffering and acquainted with infirmity. This is the one that we follow. This is the one in whom we discover that the weakness of God is greater than any human strength. And it is in solidarity with that divine weakness, with the deep compassion, extravagant love, and radical hospitality of Jesus Christ, that we will be strong and we will be faithful to enter the future that God has called us to. Amen.